Okay, you guys should be able to see me. You should be able to hear me. Let me know if you guys can both hear and see me. Yeah. So let's check in real quick. Present Thursday night surprise. Yeah. So we're just experimenting a little bit. Maybe we'll try doing 2 streams a week. Podcast is still something that's gonna be a normal Monday thing. It's just me tonight, just doing a bit of a Q&A. I have something a little bit different planned for the podcast this upcoming Monday, given that it's the end of the year. So we'll be talking about that in a little bit. Well, I guess I don't really have to announce what we're doing on Monday, but I mean it's not really a big deal. So Monday night, what we're gonna do is just basically 2023 predictions. We haven't really actually done the 2023 predictions yet, so that will be the Monday night plan. But there's been some news, some things going on recently that I think are kind of a good idea to talk about now. So because we won't really talk about it on Monday, really. I mean, we might touch on it, but there's gonna be so much to talk about on Monday night. We won't get to this news, so I felt like it was a good opportunity to kind of talk about it. And I'm not gonna have a video specifically covering this news. There might be something for the Zelda thing, but it's going to be kind of expanded upon. But anyways, yeah, so I figured let's just try, live streaming tonight for maybe about an hour or so, see how it goes, see what you guys think. Well, it's just kind of more of a me just focusing on talking with you guys here in the chat, so the more questions, the better. If any YouTube members or Patreon members want to join in on Discord call for the call-in segment, just let me know. Like, we can do that at any point. We have a lot of flexibility to do that on Thursday night, so we'll see how this works, but that's the basic plan. As the title suggests, we're going to be talking about the ESRB rating for the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It's been rated. It is E10 and up, so we'll be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about some Mario rumors as well. I actually don't have it pulled up right now. Sorry about that. But basically, Zippo, I know a lot of people trust Zippo, has put out some new Mario rumors, and I felt like, well, I don't know if I want to make an actual video about it specifically. I felt that it was at least worth talking about here in a stream, so that's what we're doing. Hopefully I can find the rumors. It's basically just talking about 2D Mario. Yeah, so it looks like I found it. Let's see here. I just want to pull it up. We're not going to talk about it quite this moment. I'm seeing if they sourced it, because, if there's an article about it, should be sourced. There it is. Alright, there's Ruby showing up. Alright, cool. So I had the rumor pulled up. Zippo has I don't know, I keep telling myself I'm going to do like a deep analysis on specific leakers and whether they should be trusted or not. Maybe I'll do that for Zippo at some point soon, but I haven't gone around to that yet, right? Obviously. So, but it's at least a fun discussion, so we'll talk about that. But yeah, let's check in with the chat here. Guys, let me know if everything looks and sounds okay. Any gripes, let me know. I can fix it now instead of realizing it after the stream's over. That would be appreciated. DE Fox, thank you for being here. Thank you for modding. Charles Tradell, hello, good evening. Gone Hunter, hello. Ruby wants to make herself known. Hi there, young lady. How you doing? You doing good? Good? She's good. She's good. Yep, I think I already kind of explained why we're doing things here on Thursday, Paul Dunn. But welcome, glad to see you here. Hello there, Sammy. Thank you that you can hear and see. Thank you. All right, anime. I'm doing okay. How about yourself? Ice Sonic. Yo, playing some Sonic Frontiers. Can't wait for the free DLC next year. Big year for Mario, Zelda, and even Sonic still. Hope you have a good Christmas. Thank you. I hope you have a great Christmas as well. Oh, Paul, and you have not heard about the rating. Well, here it is. Tears of the Kingdom has been rated E10 and up by the ESRB. We're going to be breaking that down in a moment here. Hello there, Having Hope 5. Hello there, Zone A Theorist. Blostrom Pie. Do you think we will ever see themes for Nintendo Switch? I really want to see them. I loved it on 3DS. Man, that's tough because, well, so we're in the middle of the 6th year of the Nintendo Switch. Not every Nintendo system even makes it that long. And yet here we are hoping that they add themes. So I don't know. I'll tell you what, it's something that I think is worth investigating a little bit more. I might put together a video on that, actually. Will themes ever come? I think that's definitely something worth investigating a little bit deeper, so I'm going to look into that. But given how late we are into the Switch's life cycle, I'm very skeptical that we are going to get themes. But there is a little bit of an angle here. And the angle I see is if Nintendo has like a sort of like a bit of a major revamp for the system. And I've sort of shied away from this recently, but I think given how things are going, there's definitely debate to be had. And that's sort of like I'm going to put this little qualifier on here, a pseudo mid-gen refresh. So I add pseudo because I don't know, I feels like we're past the point of a mid-gen refresh already, but I think there's some points to be made here. I think that given that Nintendo wants to have like this whole 10-year plan for Switch, if they're going to reasonably make it last that long, the way you make it last that long is by having a mid-generation refresh. You add more powerful hardware that can play newer games, have some exclusives, run a little bit better, has better bells and whistles, things of that nature. And it would line up with a lot of things we've been discussing. I've been calling it Switch 2 lately because I'm just assuming it's the next generation. And it may be, Nintendo, with the way Nintendo may market this, whenever it is announced, be it next year or the year after, it's going to be interesting to see how they market it, because that will obviously have its own ramifications. But to the point, if there's some sort of update with a system, regardless of what it is, the original Switch, anyone who has a Switch who's all since the 2017 release, all those Switches are still going to be relevant for a few more years, regardless of what happens next year. Their games are still going to come out for at least a couple more years, and mostly new games. So, with that said, whenever this happens, it's going to be a good opportunity for Nintendo to sort of revamp their ecosystem. I think when you take a look at how Nintendo has continually worked on their Nintendo Online service, right? That suggests that it's something more long-term. This is something that's going to be transferred over to the next system. It's not like we're going to start from scratch again. That I don't see that really happening. Because we're on a paid subscription model now, as opposed to the past where it wasn't a paid subscription model, they don't want to lose those subscriptions. So they actually have a financial incentive to carry it over. This is not just pipe dream wishing that they carry over their service. It benefits them to do that because they're risking a loss of money by starting all over now. So that's actually a good thing from that perspective, right? For a lot of people, they've wanted it to carry over. We don't want to lose all the virtual console games we already have. Granted, they're not something we own individually like the virtual console, but we still have access to them. So with that all said, I think when the new system comes around, there's probably going to be a major update to make things cross-compatible. And this new system, something that they may want to tout are new themes. And themes, in theory, should also work on base Switch. We have, white theme and black theme, right? So I think if there's a chance for it to happen, it's going to be around this timing when there's a big update for some sort of new system, be it a next gen or a mid-gen refresh, whatever it is. They're going to probably update the Switch as well because there's going to be a lot of cross-compatibility. Switch is still going to be relevant for a few more years. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. That's maybe like kind of what I could sort of see happening. But if that system comes around and there's no themes then I think the Switch is just not going to have them. I think maybe it was an idea they considered, but they forgot about it. Like maybe they could do it like late into the generation, but we're in year 6. We're in year 6 going on year 7. So, we're barring that, I don't really see it. So I see we have a super chat here from Sammy. Thank you very much for the super chat, Sammy. Do you think dungeons return in Tears of the Kingdom? I will get to this. Just let me drink some water here. I went on one tangent. I'll go on tangents all night, but I just need to Yeah. The goal should be to finish this entire bottle before the stream is over. So, Sammy, do I think dungeons return in Tears of the Kingdom? When you say dungeons, I'm assuming you mean not like the Divine Beast from Breath of the Wild, but actually something more like what we saw in Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, The Wind Waker, the classic style dungeons we've seen in the 3D Zelda games, where there's kind of like more of a theme. There's a theming there. There's a build up to each respective dungeon. That each dungeon has its own, not only like a theme in terms of like element, but also there is some sort of narrative at play as well. Like, for example, the mansion in Twilight Princess that was in the mountains where there was the Yetis. There was a love story going on there, right? And there was a history, and there was maybe some sort of war that was waged or battle. Like, there was all of that history to the mansion. So something like that, where maybe there's a mid boss, maybe there's even an item that you can get, and it ends with like a final unique boss. I think a lot of those elements will come back in new style dungeons in this game. So I don't think it's gonna work exactly the way it's used to work. I think there's still gonna be that Breath of the Wild flair, but I think something more akin to that. Like, I think something more of a hybrid. I definitely think that's going to happen. When you take a look at Breath of the Wild, we had 100 shrines, and we had 4 divine beasts. If you count the castle, that's 5, sort of, right? And then that's not counting the DLC. The DLC, I think they added like at least another 20 shrines, and then another like divine beast dungeon, something like that. It didn't move, but it was, in the Great Plateau. Anyway, they added a lot. So with that, like, because there's so much, a common criticism of the shrines and of the divine beasts is that there wasn't much variety there. So I think that when they come, whatever it is that we see in Tears of the Kingdom, I think they're going to be addressing a lot of the big criticisms with Breath of the Wild. That basically replicate in a fresh new way all the good things that Breath of the Wild did, but also address and improve upon all the criticisms for Breath of the Wild. That way they can make the best game possible. Like, I think that's their goal. If you look at the history with Zelda development, the Zelda team is actually pretty reactive to what the fans say. So with that all in mind, I think that there's probably going to be a fair bit more variety with the dungeons. There's not proof of that. So, this is my conjecture based off just the history of the Zelda team, and considering how much extra time we've seen put into development for this particular game. I think we're going to see more themes. And I think that that's going to lead to some dungeons that are going to have more of a there's going to be like a forest dungeon, a fire dungeon, and there's going to be a narrative at play there, like a story, something that makes it more interesting, and obviously a gameplay hook as well. Something that I had a problem with the Divine Beasts from Breath of the Wild. I thought they were amazing, first off. Like, it was mind-blowing, actually. Like, I thought they were incredible. But once I figured out the first one, the others were kind of easy. Like, the whole puzzle behind it. So, I think that for these next ones, they're going to be more like previous Zelda games, where there's, like, some sort of hook you have to kind of figure out, but it's unique to each particular dungeon. It's not something that's carried over to the other ones. And each dungeon I expect to end, the major ones at least, however many there may be, it's going to end with a unique boss fight, not just some sort of malice with a slightly different color that uses a slightly different element. Like, it's gonna be like its own thing. Like, maybe one's like a giant spider boss, one is a reincarnation of the Gerudo witches, or maybe one's gonna be Volvagia, for like a resurrection of Volvagia, like something like there's gonna be unique bosses for each one. That's what I'm kind of hoping for, and I hope for, but I also sort of expect it too. So I don't think it's it's a lofty expectation. I think a lot of people will be in agreement that this is what they should sort of go for, variety, really. So I think that most old Zelda fans are going to appreciate the changes in Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know that, but That's my expectation. Celtic 14. Hi, Andres. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you as well. Do you think Day 5 Indie will have Sports Story, Hollow Knight, Silksong, or something good? Day 5 Indie. Day 5 Indie. I feel like people have been waiting for news on these for a while. What's Day 5 Indie? Didn't we have like an indie show not too long ago? Oh, so is Nintendo having like a 5-day holiday event? I see. Okay. I'm looking it up now. I'm seeing. So basically they're showcasing different indie games every day of the holiday. I mean every day leading up to Christmas. So okay. So there's some shadow drops as well. Oh. I mean I'm gonna go on a limb and say we won't see something major like the ones you mentioned. That would be cool. I don't know if like they had a release date for like winter, then I would say yes, but I haven't been paying attention strictly to those, so I don't want to like tell you, oh yeah, maybe. I don't know. But this is interesting. I actually wasn't really paying too much attention to this. Cool. All right, let's see here. Right, and themes will come on the next Switch. Yeah, probably. Let's see here. I have another super chat from Boss Tron Pie. Thank you very much for the super chat. I know a lot think Switch 2 could launch alongside Tears of the Kingdom, but I disagree. I think it launching alongside Metroid Prime 4 is more likely. Thoughts? Okay, yeah, let's dive into that, because I don't think that's a bad take, first off. So, you know, I think, I mean, I see it in my comments, and I know, you know, not everyone that dislikes a video or leaves a negative comment is someone that necessarily watches my content. They see it in their feed, and because they already have like a certain stance in mind, they won't even watch the video or listen to what I have to say, dislike, may spew some vitriol in the comments and leave. That happens a lot, and I see that. But I guess the point I'm getting at here is that I think some people, when they see I talk about, oh, could like Switch 2 launch alongside Tears of the Kingdom, yes, I do think there's a really good chance that could happen, but I'm not like 100% on it, right? Like, I think there's a chance that it doesn't. I think there's a chance that maybe we wait till the holiday and there's a new Mario game. And, you know, I haven't talked about too much, but Metroid Prime 4 is something that I think should be in that conversation as well. I don't think it's as likely, I will tell you that, but I do think that it's in the cards. So let's kind of like walk through this, right? So they're from the perspective of Nintendo usually relying on Zelda to support a big release and that lead to success. There's more history for that than Metroid or Mario. So from that perspective, I feel like, okay, yeah, Tears of the Kingdom makes a lot of sense. But I understand people have a lot of doubt because, well, it's so soon. May is just around the corner. We haven't seen a lot of strong signs for new hardware. We haven't, and well, then that while that may be true, we also haven't seen a lot of signs for Zelda either, right? So take that into consideration. Nintendo's being very quiet about Tears of the Kingdom, even though it is coming out in May, which is strange. But regardless, there isn't any like strong signs. So some people are just writing it off. Not to mention, Switch is selling pretty well right now. If it is like Nintendo has like forecasted a little bit lower, but not by a substantial margin. So it's still doing really healthy. So people are thinking, oh, if Switch is selling so well, why would Nintendo release a new system and just completely ruin that? And it's a valid point. But I think the reason why I've really spoken on Tears of the Kingdom being something that's a good idea to launch with the system is because I do think Nintendo wants to come out with new hardware before they start to lose momentum. They want to beat that point. You look at Sony. Sony's done a great job of having consistently successful home consoles. Even the PS3, which had it suffer in a lot of ways, ultimately still had a pretty healthy generation when you think about hardware sales. So I feel that with Nintendo, they may want to replicate that to some extent. And what that means is, it does mean that they want their platforms to have basically 10-year life cycles. Sony does that. This isn't anything new. So every time someone says, oh, Nintendo's going to have a 10-year life cycle, that doesn't mean there won't be a new system. It means that the Switch is going to live alongside for a few years their next system. That's what it actually means. They're going to sell it at a budget price, and that's how it's going to work. Nintendo already did this with the 3DS. The 3DS is still selling systems in 2019, even though the Switch was out in 2017. And it was coming out with new games. So this isn't anything new. This is something Nintendo's already been doing. And I'm going to get to the Metroid Prime 4 point. This is just kind of like a big, long point. So, anyways, my point is simply that I think there's a decent chance that Nintendo's going to want to bring out new hardware before momentum for Switch starts to really shoot downwards. And given that we'll already be in the 7th year of Switch come May of 2023, when Zelda comes out, I don't think that's like really that crazy of a time. But it may be still a little too early, and maybe Nintendo will simply have like a big update, maybe at the end of the DLC for Tears of the Kingdom, that will have a better performing version, a better looking version that is ready for their next system. And maybe that's holiday. And so maybe you could then insert Metroid Prime 4 as a launch candidate for that system, maybe holiday 2023. And, I don't think that's a crazy idea. And I know you're not necessarily saying 2023, by the way. It could be 2024. But, I'm considering the different angles here, right? So, potentially they could do that. But something else to consider, one of the main reasons why Prime 4, as great as I think that game is going to be, it's not like Zelda or Mario. Breath of the Wild is approaching 30 million copies sold. Mario Odyssey is approaching 25 million copies sold. These games sell incredible. Metroid, on the other hand, does not. If Metroid Prime 4 even hits 10 million, that would be an incredible success. Like, no one's expecting Prime 4 to hit those numbers, really. I'm optimistic, but Prime 4 may only end up hitting like 4 or 5 million. I think it's gonna be the best selling Metroid game ever, better than Dread, but I don't, 10 million is kind of like maybe like its ceiling. So the reason I bring that up is that, software sales is a big reason why you'd want a game to come out alongside a new system, because it really pushes that, right? If people are going to want to get this game, the more people that want to get this game for the system, the more the system's going to sell. So if not as many people are going to buy Prime 4 compared to a new Zelda or a new Mario, that kind of diminishes its value as a system pusher. That said, Metroid Prime 4, like I said, I think is going to be the best-selling Metroid game yet. I think maybe it could hit 10 million. Like, I don't know, I'm not sure on that, but I think it's at least going to hit 4 or 5, which is still a very big number. And it's going to be the kind of game that is going to look incredibly impressive. It's going to be one of the most impressive Nintendo games we've ever seen, visually, graphically, performance-wise, I hope. So they're going to want a new system to showcase that, and the game will showcase the system. And that's probably the best argument for Prime 4, is that it's going to do such an incredible job of showcasing the system. So another angle here is that maybe Switch 2 it's not Switch 2. If it's more like a mid-gen refresh, right, where maybe it's kind of like the Game Boy Color or a PS4 Pro sort of thing, where Prime 4 is still going to be a dual release. All games coming out for Switch are going to come out for this new system and vice versa. Like, it's not going to really change anything in terms of exclusives. Then it could kind of function more like how they handled OLED. Metroid Dread launched alongside OLED, which I think serves your point. So with Metroid, they did that and it worked fine, but, Metroid Dread was just kind of like a nice game to have that would look really good on an OLED screen in handheld mode. Prime 4 It's going to be a great showcase of a more powerful system, but they're basically hoping the system's going to kind of sell on its own, and it's going to run other games well as well. Like, even if Prime 4 launches alongside this new system, the idea would be that when the system launches, Tears of the Kingdom's going to look better on it as well. The next Mario's going to look and run better on it as well, assuming these games have come out already. So going back to like Prime 4 maybe launching alongside 2023, I don't think that, mainly because I don't think Prime 4 is coming out in 2023. I think it'll be 2024, but maybe the new system doesn't come out until 2024, which is possible. But it really comes down to what the system's going to do. And I think the later Nintendo takes to release the system, the more it's going to feel more like a proper next gen rather than a mid-gen refresh. And with that in mind, the longer we wait, I think the more sense it makes for it to be something more like a Zelda or a Mario rather than Metroid. So in my eyes, Mario and Zelda are more likely, but Prime 4 is like, it's the next option, and it kind of depends on exactly how Nintendo's trying to market it. So it's definitely, it's in the cards. It absolutely is, but it's just a little bit less likely to me than the other two, just because I think they want something that has more sales potential. But timing, how they're marketing it, these things matter. So we'll see. Hey, Regal Romero has been a member for 2 months. Glad you have been a member for this long, buddy. Thank you. Alright, let's see here. Let's see, moving on here in the chat. Joy CJ, I want unique weapons again. In Zelda? That would be nice. Sammy, I have no doubt the game will be better than Breath of the Wild if Dungeons return. What if it got a 98 or 99 in Metacritic? That would be... It's possible. If they get rid of slipping and rain, I think that might do the trick. Frank Murray Skull, hope we get an item that would be beneficial in the overworld. D. Fox, you want blacksmiths for repairing weapons? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would like to see that. Frank, going back to your point, like, if we have dungeons where they give us some sort of new item that's beneficial, that helps us out in the overworld, that would be cool. I don't know how they're going to do it, because wait, how Breath of the Wild worked, right? Like, they gave you a whole bunch, most of your powers right in the beginning. And that was kind of like, you could do so much with that. And then, of course, you still got more powers with better weapons and better arrows. And you did still get, like, certain powers that helped you to do things. But they only made it easier. They didn't, being able to fly, being able to jump up high was great to help you traverse more. But you still always had the ability to climb up, right? Or... being able to revive yourself is great, but as long as you play defensively and you eat have a good recipes, you don't need it. Same, and if you're a good fighter, the lightning helps, but you don't necessarily need the lightning to kill anything. It just makes it easier. So I don't know if they will kind of go back a little bit, because if there are items, now the items again, to that point, the items don't have to be something that unlock something you couldn't do beforehand. It could just make it easier. Like, if you can climb everywhere still, great, but the claw shot would just make it easier to traverse, for example. Maybe that's how it works. Maybe that's something they can do. Let's see here. Smash Monkey. Switch 2 probably isn't until late 2024, so 2 and 3 will get updates till then. Well, I think something that people sort of miss on is that whenever this system when it comes out, it doesn't mean all support that other games have been getting is going to end. These games are going to play on the next system. These games are going to be relevant on the next system. They're going to be updated for the next system. So, I think that whenever anyone's talking about new hardware this soon, it's because that's an assumption. I don't think Switch 2 is going to come out and they're no longer going to have updates available for Mario Kart Splatoon. Like, the same way how earlier I was talking about how the Nintendo Online accounts and their subscriptions are going to transfer over, Nintendo has financial incentive to do that because we're paying for that already. And with that in mind, what that means is that all the DLC that's coming out for Mario Kart and that will be coming out will still work just the same on a new system. Not going to change. I mean, and it's for that reason. It's one of the reasons why, like, whenever I talk about this, how Nintendo, the messaging behind this, you know, is going to be interesting, because in a lot of ways, it's not going to feel like a full-on next generational leap. It's going to feel a bit like a mid-gen refresh. So it's just going to be interesting to see how that works. But I don't think when this new system comes around that things like Splatoon 3 will no longer be relevant. Like, the updates for Splatoon 3 will still be just as beneficial for base Switch as it will be for this new system. Gone Hunter. Okay, you were speaking to someone in the chat. I gotcha. Okay, cool. Joy CJ, we're not getting another Smash for probably another decade. Maybe. That's why I think that we're probably getting like a Smash Deluxe or a Smash update of some sort to kind of lengthen the lifespan of Smash Ultimate until it's time to move on to next Smash Brothers. Yeah, Sammy, based off the NVIDIA leak, the Switch 2 is going to be a lot more powerful than the Switch. A lot more. Like, maybe like a portable PS4 or something like that. And if you account for DLSS, it's gonna look and run even better than a lot of PS4 games. That's the idea. ED_DLT. Do you think 2023 will be the last year of Nintendo Switch? No. So, and I've kind of talked about this already, but because I believe wholeheartedly that whenever this new system comes out, the base Switch is still gonna be supported for a long time. It's not gonna change that much. Like, there are still gonna be buying the Switch, right? So say Switch 2 comes out next year, as I'm thinking. I don't know, but I'm kind of hoping more so than thinking, but we'll see. If that happens, games are still going to come out, and you're going to still be able to buy them and play them on your Switch. And 2024 is going to come around, and new games are going to come out from Nintendo, and you're still going to be able to buy and play them on your Switch, not your Switch 2. Like, it's still going to be relevant for a few years, and there's going to be a lot of cross-generational games. That's how it's going to work. Now, will it be the same cartridge, and it's just going to be like the same thing? Or is it going to be like, if you have a Switch version, do you have a free upgrade or a small fee to upgrade to the Switch 2 version? That's also up for debate. We don't know exactly how Nintendo is going to handle something. I just expect new hardware that will be more powerful next year. What it will do, if it's going to, it may not even market as a next generation. Maybe market it more as a mid-gen refresh, like a Game Boy Color or a Pro. So, regardless, I don't think 2023 is the last year of Switch. It may be the last year of Switch where, it's the last system, where it's getting all the exclusives from Nintendo. Maybe 2024, we start to see some exclusives for the Switch 2, and they start to slowly transition over. Like, that's possible. But no, I don't think 2023 is the last year that Switch will be relevant. So definitely not. I think Nintendo's plan is to get Switch to become the best-selling console of all time. I think they're in striking distance now. I mean, by the end of the year, I think there's a really good chance we'll be over 120 million. And at that point, we're just about 35 million away from it becoming the best-selling system of all time. And if Switch were to maintain the momentum it's at right now, that would mean that in less than 2 years, it would be the best-selling system ever. Now, I think it's unlikely that it will maintain its momentum. I think it's going to continue to go down, but by how much? That's up for debate. And the other angle to this, right, is that it all comes down, again, how Nintendo chooses to market their next system is going to be interesting. Because what if it's not called Switch 2? What if it's called like Switch Plus or Switch Pro, which I know people hate the idea of Switch Pro, like that naming, because there's all these rumors. But if they market it more like a mid-gen refresh and the compatibility with it and base Switch is very close, it may be more like a Game Boy Color situation. So the second best-selling system of all time is actually grouped. It's Game Boy and Game Boy Color combined. Game Boy Color was more powerful. It had color, handheld games. But it had some exclusive games. But all the Game Boy games that you played on your Game Boy, you could still play on your Game Boy Color, and they would all be put into color too. So that was another cool thing about the Game Boy Color. It enhanced older games after the fact, and it had some exclusive games, although most games still were available for both systems, and it's still considered part of the same family. So it's possible that this next system will be something like that, and if it is, then that it'll just, it's not going to really change much for the base Switch, but it's going to be considered as part of those sales, and at that point, we're just guaranteed to see the Switch become the best-selling system of all time, if it's still considered part of the Switch family, and not like straight-up Switch 2. So there's all these different angles, but regardless, even if it's a next-generation full-on next year, Switch is still going to be relevant for a few more years. So, yeah. TC, appreciating seeing more of your vids lately, Andres. Keep up the great work. Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate the content. I'm doing my best here. I am trying to do things full time. I don't know how long this will last, but we'll see. We'll see. Just keeping it going, doing what I can. I really still feel like we're just kind of scratching the surface too. Like, sometimes I'll see people joke saying that I'm kind of scratching at the bottom of the barrel for ideas, but the fact of the matter is, it's not really true. On Sunday morning, really early in the morning, I sort of collected my ideas, and if there was not any more news at all for 50 straight days, I could have a video. And this is assuming I don't come up with any other ideas, and there's no news. I can make a video for 50 straight days that I think would do pretty well. Yeah. So, it's really more about execution and timing. That's what it's about. It's not about there's tons of ideas. And that's kind of the exciting thing about trying to do things full time, is that I have more of an opportunity to really kind of dig deeper on a lot more topics and see what can be accomplished. Rigo Romero, do you think they'll have a presentation for a new model or just another YouTube video like the OLED? This kind of goes back to what I've been sort of going back and forth with recently throughout this live stream. And it's kind of well, how is Nintendo going to market this? How different is this system going to be? If the system's kind of more like a mid-gen refresh, then, maybe they could get away with just having a trailer, a nice big trailer that explains some things, but a trailer. My personal opinion is that if there's a new system coming next year, and if it's not, it's 2024, right? But if there's a new system coming next year, I think it's going to be such, regardless of what it is, maybe a mid-gen refresh, which it's not really mid, be more like 3/4 gen refresh, but whatever. That and, a next gen, whatever it is, I think that it won't just be a trailer. It won't be like a big presentation that we saw back in 2017 of January. I think it'll be a direct. I think Nintendo will do a direct that will present this system. That's what I'll do. I wouldn't be surprised if come January. This is a little optimistic, obviously. It's kind of hoping that there's a new system for Tears of the Kingdom, which may not happen. But if there is, I wouldn't be shocked if a couple weeks into January, say January 14th or January 21st, something like that, they announce a direct, hey, we have a presentation planned. It'll be about 10 minutes or so long. We want to introduce you to the next device in the family of Nintendo Switch systems. Something like that. And they'll do that direct, and they'll showcase the system, and you'll see the system running with a few games like Tears of the Kingdom. You'll see more Tears of the Kingdom footage. They'll talk about the benefits of the system, and they'll even announce maybe Tears of the Kingdom and this system, like some sort of pre-order bonus or something like that. Like I could see that happening. So I'm expecting a direct. I mean, think about this. They've done multiple directs for the Mario movie, for example, recently. So yeah, right now I'm kind of thinking a direct. Let's see here. Zelado, hi. Do you think Mario is still a console seller? It has been a long time since Nintendo has released a console alongside a Mario game. Sure, they sell a lot, but that doesn't mean they pushed consoles. I think Mario 64 pushed consoles. I think if Breath of the Wild wasn't a thing, Mario Odyssey would have helped. I still feel like Zelda is a better console pusher. I think people are more likely to buy hardware for Breath of the Wild than they are for Mario Odyssey. So, you know, for next Mario, you know, would it be as significant? And I wouldn't have said so until recently. Brandon actually on the podcast pointed this out to me. The Mario movie is going to have an effect on Mario sales. It's going to boost Mario sales. And you take a look at some of the stuff we've seen in the Mario thing, like that first poster, for example. They're showcasing a world that would love to be like an actual game. And whatever this next Mario is, if it looks and runs significantly better than Mario Odyssey, which was already an incredible game, I think those two things together would lead to it being a pretty significant console pusher. That extra popularity from the movie, it looking very visually impressive and having more big open environments, I think people will be really excited about that. And combined, they will amplify the impact Mario could have on the sales of a system. So yeah, the answer is I do think it's a console seller. You know, something about being a console seller, like I think what it takes to be a console seller, it needs to be something that makes you feel this is an experience that I can only get on this system, and I need this experience so people buy the game. Like, it needs to be a new experience that people are like, oh my goodness, it's an amazing experience that I'm hearing about. I need to get the system for that, right? There needs to be something like that. And you take a look at Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was that kind of game. Breath of the Wild was Game of the Year, but not only was it Game of the Year, it was, you know, arguably Game of the Generation. It was innovative. It broke down so many traditions for the Zelda series, but in a lot of great ways, because a lot of people were really down with it. It was touting an open world experience that was better than any before it. In a lot of ways, I agree with those statements. So with that all in mind, people are like, oh man, I need to play like a legit open world HD modern Zelda game. Like, that's like the quintessential like medieval fantasy adventure for video games. I need a Switch to do this, and I can play it portably. Let's go. So like that worked. And I think Breath of the Wild takes away a little bit from Mario, but Mario still did incredibly well. Mario Odyssey is still the best-selling 3D Mario ever by a substantial margin. So it's not like Mario's a slouch. Zelda just, you know, has done a little bit better over time. But actually, for a while, Mario was outperforming Zelda. Zelda has simply proven to be a better evergreen title. I guess, you know, because for what it did, it is kind of like what Breath of the Wild accomplished was more revolutionary, more innovative than Mario. But Mario is a stronger name. But Zelda has beaten it out. Snick Snack. I feel like I'm the only person who didn't miss dungeons in Breath of the Wild. The Divine Beasts were enough for me. I preferred the shrine system. So, kind of like I was talking about earlier, like I want dungeons to sort of come back, but I want them to still have the Breath of the Wild flair. I think what was important was more variety to the shrines and the Divine Beasts, more of a unique puzzle hook for each particular one, and an actual unique boss fight at the end. I think that's what's missing. Like, the idea of having 100 shrines and 4 or 5 big major dungeons, that formula is fine. I'm okay with that. I just needed to be more variety within those shrines and dungeons, and unique final boss fights and unique actual puzzle hooks for each one, as opposed to saying it's the same, and once you figure it out, all the rest are easy. Like, that's not okay. So, you know, I mean, I'm okay with the formula, but there's things that need to be improved upon. Okay. Johnny Hernandez. Nintendo will use NVIDIA or an NX that comes out in January 2023. Well, that'll be fun. I hope so. Johnny Hernandez. What if Nintendo releases a streaming device console? I think it will not go over well. If it's like a additional system, like not a main system, like if there's another Switch revision that comes out maybe 2025, and it's like, hey, this streams games, but it's a purely digital device that maybe you can get like a SIM card for or something. Like as an alternative, I think maybe they can do that. And obviously that means Nintendo's sort of testing the waters for if there's some sort of future to this. But I still think we're a long ways off before something like that could really become mainstream. Let's see here. All right, so Zelado. Damn it, the ESRB rating makes me doubt even more about the dark tone of Tears of the Kingdom. I know Majora's Mask is E2, but you know, I wouldn't expect that at most Ocarina Adult Link dark tone in some parts, maybe. Gone Hunter saying Ocarina Time is as dark as Majora's Mask. Let me drink some water here. So I'm not necessarily concerned. I never expected Tears of the Kingdom to be rated in a gruesome way, regardless of what they do. I do think, however, that some people have perhaps overstated the darkness comments from Eiji Aonuma back when they showed off the game in 2019, where they announced it. I'm trying to look up the ESRB for Breath of the Wild. Is it E or E10 or teen? I want to just double check. I'm pretty sure I'm assuming it's E10, but Zelda of Breath of the Wild, it's E10. Yeah, so I mean it's the same rating as Breath of the Wild. So I'm pretty much expecting par for the course there. And yeah, Majora's Mask was a very dark Zelda game, but its ESRB wasn't anything crazy either. Because the ESRB doesn't rate things. It was rated E. So, I think something we should take a look at is that concepts don't really seem to make a big deal, right? Like the darkness, the eeriness, spooky stuff like that doesn't increase the rating of the game. It's more like objective things that occur. So, you know, like a lot of blood. So, I mean, I guess one thing that we can say is that we're probably not going to see like dripping blood in Tears of the Kingdom. That's not going to be seen. But maybe we see like you know, Link's arm is going to be damaged. Like we already see that in the footage. His arm's going to hurt and burn, but you're not going to. It's not going to look like burning flesh. So it's going to be represented a little bit differently. The game is cel shaded. Like it already has like a toon-like look, so it's not. It just isn't going to. There's not. They would have to do something ridiculous. Like there's not going to be any sex scenes in the game. Nothing obvious, at least. There might be something implied through subtext, but it's not going to be like, hey, let's go bang in the back. Like they're not going to say that, right? But there probably will be a girl or two that might like giggle or wink at Link, or it's like, oh, you're a real big boy. Like stuff like that happens in Zelda games where there are romantic teases, but they're never anything so overt that they're showing up on the ESRB. So I bring it up just to like say that, you know, there's still gonna be insinuations of dark things. They can still reference death and things of that nature. It's just and it can still be eerie and creepy and have this dark atmosphere. But as long as they're not like brutally dismembering bodies on screen with blood spraying everywhere and literally saying sex and curse words, they're not going to raise the rating. Like, that's just not going to happen. So E10, I think, it's honestly expected. It does not really ruin or my expectations for what Tears of the Kingdom was going to be. I just want to double look at the ESRB rating for Tears of the Kingdom. I know it's E10, but I want to check the description again. Tears of the Kingdom, ESRB rating. Let's assuming it pops up. Well, I was hoping it was gonna pop up so I could just kind of like click and look at the description. Fantasy, violence, mild, suggestive themes. Okay. That's why it's rated E10. What about Breath of the Wild? Let's go back to that one. I think Breath of the Wild had alcohol in it. So that one had something. Yeah, so check this out. Yeah, so the E10 for Breath of the Wild is fantasy, violence, mild, suggestive themes, use of alcohol. So yeah, these things. Okay, the suggestive themes. Interesting. And then fantasy, violence, and mild suggestive themes. Yeah, they're the same. So let me show you guys this. Let's see here. One moment. Okay, so this is for Breath of the Wild. Let's read this rating summary. This is an adventure game in which players assume the role of Link on a quest to stop a growing evil in Land of Hyrule. As players explore the open world environment, they can forage for materials, explore shrines, and engage in melee-style combat against fantastical creatures. Goblins, skeletons, centaurs are examples. They're a little similar. Anyway. Players use swords, axes, clubs, and bows to defeat enemies that generally disappear amid puffs of smoke. One brief sequence depicts a battlefield strewn with bodies of enemy creatures. In the background, a few bodies appear to be impaled by spears. The game contains some mildly suggestive material, fairies with moderate cleavage and/or exaggerated sized breasts, dialogue such as, "I get to see a young hunk draw a bow again," and "If I have to have something pounce on me, why couldn't it be a lady?" During the course of the game, a shopowner tells Link that she only serves drinks that are definitely just for adults. Players can also encounter a drunk character that occasionally hiccups. So here, just to what I was saying, there are sexual references in Breath of the Wild. There are women with cleavage, there's overt, there's alcohol, things like that. So, all these things can still show up in Tears of the Kingdom. Now, except there's one difference that is a little interesting, is that this shows use of alcohol, right, for Breath of the Wild, but I don't think it shows that for Tears of the Kingdom. I just see articles here. I guess there's not a description yet, which is what I was kind of hoping for. It's just, yeah, let me show you here. I think it's actually on Nintendo's website, and I went to an article, but Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, releasing in 2023, E10, fantasy, violence, mild, suggestive themes. It has the exact same description as Breath of the Wild. The only thing it's missing is use of alcohol. So there's this one spot in Gerudo where there's a lady that says, "Hey, I only serve drinks for adults." So it's clearly suggesting that it's alcohol there. Now, some people are taking this to mean that that location will no longer be there. That's definitely possible. But I also think that depending on the wording, they are going to use new dialogue, right? They're not going to just use the same dialogue. Whatever is said in the shop may not be directly referencing alcohol, and there may still be an implication though, but only if you know of the history with Breath of the Wild, right? So like, if this same shop still exists in Tears of the Kingdom, but you know, it has some new details, has been changed around, maybe they now also serve milk as well, and they're like, oh, milk would be great for you, then they go. Or maybe now Link is actually of age, so they just give him a drink, and you know, he shows a rosy face and is fine. Like, they don't let him overdrink. Like, I'm just saying, depending on the wording, that shop that serves alcohol may still even be in there, but if there's nothing that blatantly proves that it's alcohol, then it's not going to be even shown. It's not going to even show up in the rating, or the rating description. So, you know, there's nothing here that straight up confirms or denies how dark the game is going to be, because the darkness that we were going to see was always going to be something that's more implicit, something that's not objective, that would need to be sort of expressed in the ESRB, just like Majora's Mask. That said, I'm also not totally convinced that Tears of the Kingdom is going to be darker than Majora's Mask. I wonder that with the first trailer, it was more about simply the direction of that particular trailer, and not so much about the entire game. And I think there's some debate to be had there. I actually am planning a specific video going into more detail about the darkness in Tears of the Kingdom and this rating stuff, all of that, like I'm thinking Sunday, so Christmas Day. It's gonna be the Christmas Day video. Hopefully, fingers crossed I don't get too busy. But yeah, I'm not honestly, like, I don't think this rating really ruins anything. On the flip side, I'll also say this. If it came out that the ESRB was rated teen, I would be more excited, because like, oh, there are things in here that they couldn't just leave to subtext that is forcing the game to be rated even higher. But also, it's actually a good thing the game is the same rating as Breath of the Wild, because that means the game is more easily sold to a larger audience. And that's kind of part of the problem with having a game that's rated teen or mature. Technically, because they're rated higher, they can't just sell it to a younger person. And some parents aren't going to let their games be played by younger people. So, you know, when you have a higher ESRB rating, that does limit the audience. Now, I understand some kids are still going to find a way to get these games. So a lot of parents are still okay with their kids playing games with a higher rating. You know, when I was little, there were games I played that were rated mature. Now, there was definitely some conversations and debates and arguments I had with my parents about playing some of these mature rated games. But, you know, point is, like, kids still got their hands on them. But there is a little bit more of a fight there. There are some kids that aren't going to play it purely for that rating. So the fact that it has the same ESRB rating is good in terms of sales potential for Tears of the Kingdom. So just something else to keep in mind. Nintendo doesn't like to have higher ratings for their games because it limits the amount of people that can play the game. There's like some exceptions, like Bayonetta, for example. And I'm sure Metro Prime 4 is being rated T for teen, because it's gonna go a little bit more in that direction. But these are also games that they're not planning on having them sell 30+ million, right? They are geared to a smaller audience. That's just how it is. Let me see. I'm back on camera. Yeah, let me get back to the chat here. Okay. Yeah, sure, Johnny Hernandez. You can send me a screenshot on Discord or Twitter. If there's actually something legit, I'll take a look. I'm sorry I said that. I said that, Paul Dunn. Joycey J. If you get the spa bed in Gerudo Town, the masseuse discovers Link is male and has a very seductive giggle. Just saying. Exactly. They do things like this. So, like, this whole, like, narrative that, like, you know, E10 means it's just for kids. It doesn't really mean that. It's kind of like when you watch those Pixar movies, right, or things like that, like kids movies. These kids movies still have tons of suggestions towards more adult concepts and ideas, like death and pain and torture and romantic stuff, like, and alcohol. Like, all these things still there. It's just how they're referenced. If it's not blatant, it will not impact the rating. If it's more subtle, it can still be there. And I think subtle is honestly better. Subtle, you know, can have more. There's more to interpret when things are subtle, and it's a little bit more engaging from an intellectual perspective, I would say. I'm generalizing, obviously, but I think it's a good thing. Like Majora's Mask is a great example. Rated E10, but not even E10, just rated E. I mean, I think back then they didn't do E10, but Majora's Mask is rated E, and it's considered to be the darkest Zelda. I think 6-year-olds are technically allowed to play that game, but it's the darkest Zelda ever. The entire game, there's motif of death and grief. The 5 stages of grief. The death is rampant throughout the entire game, and you sing the song of healing for people who have died and to help guide their souls to move on, and then they leave whatever is left of them in a mask. Like these are, you know, darker ideas and concepts. And, you know, there were some scary, dark areas with battle, and there was a sense of foreboding, and there was a darkness in Majora's Mask throughout the entire game. Yet it was rated E for everyone. Because everything in that game wasn't blatant. It's not like when you cut somebody, you would see a gash of blood. Like you could attack people occasionally, with a sword, and they would get hit, but there wouldn't be blood. So, you know, that doesn't impact the rating. There's romance in the game, but it doesn't show them literally on top of each other in a bed. Like there's ways to show things and imply things without just blatantly show them, right? It's just, I think the rating thing is something that people are in general are just a little bit too concerned over. I think it'll be fine. At the very least, the rating itself doesn't tell us how dark the game is. It really doesn't. So, it was never going to be rated more than E10. Never. They were never going to do teen. That was not an option. Had you asked me back in 2019, I mean, depending on my mood, I might have said, oh, well, maybe they go to teen, but the reality situation is it's always logical to stay at the same rating as Breath of the Wild. Good point, Gone Hunter. Ocarina of Time had torture chambers and blood on the walls. This is true. Joy CJ, Gerudo Town should have been rated T for thick with the C's. That's right. Yeah, the Gerudos are beautiful. That is true. I can curse, but Link cannot. Not without it. It needs to, if it wanted to stay E10. Good thing he's a mute. Exactly, Joyce J. Nintendo does the Disney and Pixar thing where they hide it in plain sight. Exactly. Super Chris, just because something's anime doesn't mean it's for kids. True. Yep. Paladin, Link protects, in quotations, Paya while she sleeps. There are some, yeah, there's definitely a lot of sexual insinuations throughout Breath of the Wild. Yeah, the transformation masks in Majora's Mask, Joycey, were pretty dark, I would say. Totally, like they were off-putting. So, all right, let me get into the rumors about the Mario stuff. Again, take this with a grain of salt. There's definitely some questions as to the validity of the claims by Zippo. But I'm gonna read this stuff off because maybe it's a thing, and then I'll tell you what I make of it. So let me share this. There we go. All right. Maybe we'll pull it here. All right. So this is Zippo's blog. Hey, people have been asking for update on this new 2D Mario everyone's been wanting to see. So here's a bit more info. It's been in development for over 3 years. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe came out in 2019, as did Mario Maker. Okay. And development should or has just about wrapped up. That makes sense. Takashi Tezuka and Hiroyuki Kimura, who are longtime 2D Mario veterans, are once again serving as producers for this title. It will be interesting to look up what they've been working on recently, or have worked on. Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad are your playable characters this time around. Fun fact, this will mark the first time Peach has been playable in a 2D Mario since Super Mario Bros. 2, which was nearly 35 years ago. My goodness, that's a long time. No, a costume and maker and a power from the NSBU Deluxe don't count. Okay. Still set for release in the 2023-2024 fiscal year. This is less a statement on the game, but more on the future of the franchise itself. Mario & Co. will gradually take things and design them as fun moving forward, such as the brothers' updated outfits. You're actually starting to see this already. Shows a Mario movie. Well, it's Super Nintendo World. Okay. Look closely, notice Mario has new shoes laces from the movie. Yeah, I mean, I think he's onto something there. I smell a direct isn't too far off. Nintendo has a pretty hefty year planned, so it's almost time to start talking about it, yeah? Hopefully hear more early on into the new year. Update 12/22/22. Well, what do we have? That was today. Well, what do we have here? This totally slipped my mind until just this morning, but I recall seeing this years ago. Nintendo posted a job listing detailing the development of an unannounced 2D action game over 3 years ago. Given how there hasn't been a pep out of that listing for the last 3 years, and yep, it's all lining up. Okay. So, let's come back here. Yeah, stuff, man. Stuff. Alright, so, the thing is, regardless of whether you think Zippo is a leaker or not, what he's talking about is reasonable. The idea that games has been in development since 2019, about 3 years, makes sense. It holds up because, well, NSMBU Deluxe and Mario Maker 2, two different 2D Mario projects, were completed and released in 2019. Early 2019. So, maybe they are working on a 2D Mario. They've been working on 2D Mario for about 3 years. And I do remember there being a job listing as well for a 2D action game. Now, does 2D action mean a Mario game? I don't know. Would we define Mario as an action, a 2D action? I don't know. But maybe. And when you factor in that the Mario movie is coming out next year, I absolutely believe there's some sort of Mario game coming out next year. At least one. There could be two. I literally put out a video yesterday debating if we're more likely to see a 2D Mario or a 3D Mario. And basically, while I'm leaning more towards 3D Mario, that's because I'm also leaning more towards new hardware coming out next year. That's really all it is. If there's no new hardware next year, then I'm for sure thinking 2D Mario comes out in 2023, like for sure, and we could still get both. Yeah, so at some point I'm gonna want to go back and look at everything that Zippo has said and see how it holds up. I believe he was talking about hearing about how the Mario Kart 9 or 10 is in development, and with the DLC, that idea kind of completely destroys that. And then also there was a lot of financial analysts saying this as well, and the DLC kind of completely destroyed that too. So, just saying a note here, when the analyst said that new Switch hardware probably won't come out until early 2024, they could be right, but also they were talking about the next Mario Kart being in development, and while it could be the case, it is years away because of this DLC. So, yeah, I definitely, I'm not sure if the rumor's true, but I don't need the rumor to think that a 2D Mario is coming soon. It makes total sense. Total perfect good sense. Paint Fat Purple. What about Donkey Kong 2023? Thank you very much for the super chat. Yeah, I do think that a Donkey Kong 2023 is an option. I think having it come out will also greatly benefit. You know, the movie will greatly benefit it. I think the Donkey Kong, this is just my personal opinion, I don't really know, but right now I'm leaning towards the Donkey Kong being something kind of like Jungle Beat or Metroid Dread in terms of gameplay style. So that means 2D gameplay for the most part, but there will be 3D moments. And it's going to look really good. This kind of game, you know, it may not come out next year. It may come out 2024, but it's either 2023 or 2024. I believe we are within 2 years of the release of the next Donkey Kong, because I think they want to position this to take advantage of the hype from the movie, and also the Donkey Kong theme park expansion that's coming in not so long either. So, yeah, I think it's coming, but I wouldn't say 2023 for sure. Paint Fire Purple, but it's 50. I'm 50-50 on it. And we have a decent amount of games, but second half of the year, there's a lot of potential. Something else that should be thrown out there, F-Zero. I mean, recently DirectV Games threw out another potential little tease, right? One of you, was it Paint Fat Pro? Were you the one that added me about it? I think you did. Or who was it? Let me double check that. I want to give credit where credit is due. Yes, it was you, Paint Fat Purple. You're the one that showed me that DirectV Games was kind of maybe teasing F-Zero. It's been rumored. It's coming from a few different sites and venues. F-Zero, I think, is a great chance for next year too. So we got F-Zero, at least one Mario game. Advance Wars has got to come out. Donkey Kong's is in the cards, right? Maybe 2 Mario games, right? We have a lot of DLC coming up next year. Xenoblade DLC, probably Splatoon DLC, Pokemon DLC. It's crazy. Like, it's a lot. Obviously the Mario Kart DLC, and then Tears of the Kingdom, and then it's gonna have DLC as well. That's a lot. Like, there's gonna be, I think they may not have come out with a whole bunch. I mean, I think Metroid's coming out next year too. So there's a big list of things that could happen. Big list. All right, let's see here. How long are we going for? We've been streaming for about an hour 15 minutes. So I'll say we're in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the show. So final questions and points you want me to get to, this is your chance. Yeah. I don't know if you want me to sort of say anything that maybe kind of tide us over until Monday, because Monday is going to be the 2023 predictions discussion. So we'll see there. And I think Brandon and I are actually planning something special for the first Monday of the new year. It's gonna be something. I'll tell you that. Let's see here. Yeah, Princess Ruto did not wear clothes. That is true. Scarlet Stein, couldn't you play Peach in 3D World? Yes. I think he was talking about it being a 2D, the first for the 2D series. 3D World is not 2D. Yeah, he says in a 2D Mario. So, you know. Yep. D. Fox, Twilight Princess had a bar, but it wasn't actually implied that alcohol was served there. I don't remember Twilight Princess, but I do remember there was also a bar in Majora's Mask as well. And I think you drank milk there, but I mean, come on. So, like, yeah, there can still be bars. You know, that I don't think that that'll ruin anything. Vanguard, when do we think Advance War is coming out? I'm still not totally against the idea of Advance Wars coming out in March or April. We have a vacancy for April. March just has Cereza and the Lost Demon Bayonetta Origins. So I could see them fitting in another game. Advance Wars could come out in either March or April still, I think. And because it's already been announced, it initially had a release date twice, I think it could have a pretty quick turnaround. And I think it should come out in a fairly vacant time period. So I think there could be a direct in February. And they announced Advance Wars for March or April. Like, I think they can do that. Joy CJ, personal prediction, Advance Wars will be quietly released in one of the sizzle reels, maybe around E3-ish. You know, that might be... I can see them being quiet just because they may not want to create a lot of attention because of the whole political issue with the wars and stuff. But I also don't want them to be quiet about it because this game, I think, deserves attention because I think it's probably going to be good and it should be purchased by people. Pain Fat Purple, could we get 2 Fire Emblem games next year? No. Like a remake? No. I hope it's not Fire Emblem Engage Warriors. I don't need another one of those. I mean, if there's time, if there's an audience for it, then I'm not going to stop them. But we just got 3 hopes. Like, I don't think we need another Warriors game for Fire Emblem. I wouldn't be against the Xenoblade Warriors game though. That would be interesting. So Sammy with another super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat, Sammy. Sammy says, do you think there's a chance Nintendo neglects backwards compatibility for Switch 2? It would be a shame, but there's a small possibility. I really don't think so. Not at all. I think that with the Switch and how well it's doing and how strong the sales are, Nintendo's going to do everything they can to make sure that they get that audience transitioned over. So backwards compatibility, maybe even forwards compatibility, is going to be super, super essential. And by the way, when I say forwards compatibility, just so you understand what I mean by that. So backwards compatibility, what that means is, on the new system, you can play the games on the previous system. So the opposite of that, forwards compatibility would mean that on the old system, you can play games that are coming out for the new system. So, you know, that's what I'm kind of expecting. Like, I think it's so important for Nintendo to make sure they transition smoothly. They want the Switch audience to move over to Switch 2. They want to keep sales going. Basically, whatever momentum they have with Switch, they want to maintain that momentum. They don't want to lose it. If they can find a way to improve the momentum, go for it. But that's one of the reasons why I think they're not going to wait that long to come out with a new system. Because it's not about waiting until they're done, where they're dead in the water with momentum. No. They want it to come out when the time is right. And I think the time is, you know, once momentum has not died off. So, like right before it's going to start to die. So yeah, I am not really worried about Switch 2. I think there's going to be backwards compatibility. Not to mention, NVIDIA is working on their next system. NVIDIA made the Switch. Like, the NVIDIA's, it's not like it's 2 different companies working on. It's the same hardware. You know, it's probably going to be an improved version of that. Yeah, it's going to be backwards compatible. It's just not really a concern for me. I'd be shocked otherwise. Totally shocked. And I think it would be a bad decision by Nintendo if they did that. I don't think they're making that bad decision. I think we have a pretty smart Nintendo nowadays. So, not worrying. Right? Xeno Warriors would be pretty tight. Guy you don't know. I feel bad for Advance Wars and its fans. The series is finally making a comeback, but unfortunate circumstances may end up sabotaging its success. Yeah. I just hope that Nintendo does something to really improve the situation for Advance Wars, because I think it deserves it. Right? Having Hope 5. Like, I think Xenoblade Warriors makes sense. Hyrule Warriors made sense. Fire Emblem Warriors makes sense. Xenoblade, you know, it's an RPG. There's tons of characters that use different weapons. There's a lot there. There's so much material to pull from for Xenoblade Warriors. Like, obviously, you have the main 6 from Xenoblade 3, but then there's the entire Mobius crew, and then every single hero that you can add to your party as well. So there's like at least like 30-ish characters you can add just from Xenoblade 3, and then I'm sure with the DLC there'll be more options. There'll be more characters introduced with the DLC, as they have been. So there's more characters to add because of that. And then if you go back to Xenoblade 2, well, there's at least a dozen or so characters you can add from that. And if you count for Torn of the Golden Country, even more so. Then Xenoblade 1 has a dozen or so characters you can add. So like they have material for at least 50-ish characters, and I may be underestimating there. There's definitely a lot of like different like attack styles and things they can do. Totally, like, yeah. I forgot about Xenoblade X. There's Xenoblade X. That's a whole other like cast of characters that they could put in there. So, yeah, there's plenty of material for Xeno Warriors, and probably a sequel in the future. So, yeah. Joycey J, you'd be interested in a Pokemon Warriors game. I really wonder what that would look like. Actually, yeah, Vanguard, I think, were you the one that brought it up first? Yeah. Pokemon Warriors has significant potential. That's crazy. You know what? Maybe there's something there. Actually, that makes... So, with a Pokemon Warriors, they would have to, you know, obviously, it wouldn't be like a traditional hack and slash. Some character, like maybe like Aegislash, right? Maybe Zacian, but there's a lot of... Most Pokemon aren't like sword users, right? So, or even necessarily what they would have to like battle like Pokemon. Like Charizard would have to use Flamethrower and like Flare Blitz and Fly and Seismic Toss, and obviously there's just a slew of Pokemon with that. It's a cool idea because I think if they did a Pokemon Warriors, obviously there's so many options for characters, so they would never run out of that. They could really splurge on DLC and maps and stuff, but it would be cool because they could come up with some really unique like gameplay sets, which is that's where I get excited about it. Like thinking, oh man, being able to play as Pikachu in real time, that's cool. It was one of the cool things about Pokken Tournament, but Pokken was like more of like, you know, I mean, you can move left and right, but it was not truly 3D entirely in terms of movement. I know the Pokemon games are more open, but that's the character. But imagine playing as a Pokemon battling. That would be interesting. Now, I guess the question is, maybe they do it like trainers. I mean, what they could do is maybe you have a lot of Pokemon. They would have to probably create a lot of different sets. Maybe what they do is the Pokemon could kind of... Maybe how they handle it a little differently. Maybe they create a lot of moves and attacks, and those moves and attacks are interchangeable the way they are in the actual Pokemon games, and the Pokemon themselves have their own particular stats based on what they are. You know, speed and floatiness, things like that. And those things are sort of interchangeable, which will actually facilitate them making more characters than normal. And what will be crazy is what if, like, you actually are the trainer, but when you switch, but you play as a Pokemon. You play as each Pokemon, but you can switch between Pokemon as if there's a party of 6, like it is if a trainer. So there's a trainer that kind of follows you as you go. So that would be kind of a fun way to do it. Now, the context for there being a war of Pokemon, though, that's a whole other conversation. The story, they'll have to work on that. That's the imagery of a all-out Pokemon war where they're just duking each other out is the weird part. But Paco Salvador, you bring up a good point. Pokemon Warriors could be based on the Great Kalos or Kanto War. That is super cool. If they did that, it would sell millions. It would outsell Age of Calamity, which is the best-selling Warriors game of all time, by a significant margin. So I think there's a lot of potential there. But yes, Pink Fire Purple, I also think you're right. Pokemon Company would never allow it. That's the weird thing. When we've got a Pokemon MOBA, we got a Pokemon Street Fighter, Pokken, or Tekken. It was more like a Pokemon Tekken. But yeah, Pokemon Snap. Obviously, the mainline games. They've done a few spin-offs, so I don't know. Probably not, but if they did, it would definitely be the best-selling Warriors game ever. Mario Wars just seems weird to you, but so did Rabbids. That is true. Yeah. Mystery Dungeon and Pokemon Ranger. Yeah, I would. I mean, there's already a Mystery Dungeon on, so I would like to see a Pokemon Ranger. That'd be cool to see a return of that. But yeah, I think that is all for now, guys. We've done about we're close to an hour and a half. Close. The midweek live stream, don't plan on doing it for as long, but I think we covered a lot of nice little concepts here. Again, if anyone wants, any YouTube members or Patreons, you can join if you like. Want to schedule a call-in for Monday so you can join for part of the podcast, let me know. Send me a message on Twitter or on one of my community posts or comments or on Discord, and we can set that up. But yeah, sure, go watch my video, Paint Fat Purple. Have a great night, guys. Leave a like, that'd be super appreciated. But I'll see y'all really soon. Take care. Bye.